What is happening is an effective impediment to the development of intelligence, the creation of a serious literate class. That is, this is a usurpation in which a relatively small circle, let's say, I believe it's about 10,000 people at most, seize the means of culture, the means of education, and reduce everyone to their own level of ineptitude. And as they now represent the literate class, they enjoy the same authority that a normal literate class would have under other circumstances. It's a sick farce. It's something morbid. This cannot continue. We can no longer accept that these people pose in this way. We must remove these people from the intellectual profession and turn them into workers, send them to work. For example, Vladimir Safatle, Brazilian philosopher and professor known for his work in psychoanalysis and political theory. You don't have the intellectual qualifications to be a professor at any university. At most, you could be, I don't know, a geography teacher at a middle school or a primary school teacher. That's the most you could do. The correct thing would be to leave the intellectual profession altogether. The subject is reading Lacan, Jacques Lacan, a French psychoanalyst and psychiatrist renowned for his reinterpretation of Freud's work, and he reads that thing, look, the body image you have was imposed on you by the introjection of social stereotypes. I say, very well. So, that means that my self was created by this introjection. I wouldn't have a self. Meaning, if I lived alone, if I were like a wolf boy raised by wolves or orangutans, I wouldn't have this body image, I wouldn't have this self, right? And the self arises entirely from this introjection. But if it is the introjection that generates the self, how can it alienate it at the same time? Alienation is taking something that is yours and passing it to someone else. But if you didn't have any self before, how can that be? The very mechanism that is generating yourself cannot be alienation. If it were said like this, you are born with a substantial, metaphysical self. It is the self you have before God. It is your true, eternal identity. And society comes and dresses you in a straitjacket and forces you to be something else. It imposes a false image. Then yes, it would be alienation. But if there is no substantial self, and the only self you have derives from introjection, then it cannot be alienation in any way. This is something a good reader should perceive immediately without needing to think. Now, this person read this, uses this, repeats this, applies this in the analysis of phenomena and does not realize what they are doing. That is, they lack reading ability. They do not understand what they read, thus they are functionally illiterate. All professors in the humanities at USP, University of São Paulo, one of the top universities in Brazil, are like that. Practically all. There may be one or two exceptions. Those who usually express opinions and appear. They are the same fellows who write for Folha de São Paulo, a major Brazilian newspaper, known for its broad coverage of news and opinion pieces. All USP professors write for Folha de São Paulo. Folha de São Paulo is the organ of USP. They are all like that. This is not a political problem. Their political positions are not the problem. They are secondary symptoms of deep ineptitude and a divorce between thought and reality. They are literally unconscious of themselves. They do not know themselves as human agents and as a group. They do not know what they are doing. Everything they do is a concealment. It is a sleight-of-hand game to avoid seeing what they are doing. In other words, all of this is a psychopathological symptom. But it is a social psychopathology. Now, leaving the fate of a country in the hands of such people is a crime. This cannot happen. But the thing is, we do not have the strength to remove these fellows. What we can do, let's say, is exactly what we are doing in this course. We will jump out of this contamination. We do not want to converse with these people. We do not consider them qualified and do not want to know their opinion. When we examine them, it is literally like a laboratory technician examines feces. Understand? We do not want to know anything, and we will acquire another education based, let's say, on a selection of models taken from other cultures, from other times, where there truly was a superior culture. As we are in Brazil and we have nothing, the little that was taken, in a way, gives us an advantage because we can look at the entire universe and seek the best from it. Following the recommendation of St. Paul the Apostle, test everything and hold on to what is good. I spent my life doing that, collecting these education models, these various strategies of higher education, creating an arrangement that suited my own needs, my self-education. And after having done this for 40 years, today I can pass it on to you and assure you that it works. You know perfectly well how cultural debates unfold between me and these university people. You approach them and mention Olavo de Carvalho, and they say, Olavo de Carvalho, ha. Then you ask, why? Ha. What do you have that is superior to him? Why don't you face him in a debate? Ha. So, here's the thing. The individual is terrified, won't come near me for anything in the world, not even for money, you understand? And they stay at a safe distance, pretending to be superior. That is obviously pretense, childish arrogance. How can I take seriously people whose intellectual confrontation with me consists of this childish pretense? It's like saying to me, Mike Tyson, former world heavyweight boxing champion known for his aggressive fighting style, is challenging you to a fight. And I say, Mike Tyson, ha, and go home. I stay at a safe distance from Mike Tyson. That's what these people do. How can you take such people seriously? The other day, a student called me saying, oh, but if I mention you, they react like that. I said, why do you place yourself under the judgment of these people, these ants, these little mosquitoes? You understand? Because all of them, the best among them, those who challenged me in previous generations, came out very poorly. Their disciples, who are now the professors, are terrified of me. So they smirk or utter 2 or 3 canned phrases but say nothing substantive. How can you not realize that these people are pretending? This is, let's say, an affectation of superiority from a distance. Moreover, why do you want to please such people? For instance, if you are attending a university and your professors are like this, do not try to please them at all. It is easier to intimidate them. When one of them acts like this, you say, you are saying this because you are not capable of confronting Olavo. He knows 100 times more than you, and you are terrified of coming near him. So don't try to fool me. If you say this, the individual will put their tail between their legs and respect you for the rest of the course. Now, if you yield, they will step on you, humiliate you, and may even destroy your career. Never yield to this, because yielding to this is not merely a strategic external attitude. It has an internal effect on you. It will weaken you, make you more cowardly, more inept, and destroy your intelligence. Human intelligence, folks, has a systemic nature. Intelligence is not a specialized function. It is a kind of condensation of all your experience, of your entire personality. It is the superior part of your personality, the superior part that unifies everything. Therefore, you cannot isolate parts of your life where your intelligence does not play a role. If you say, this part of my life will not be governed by my intelligence, but by my fear of this professor, you've just harmed yourself. If you want to maintain your intelligence, you must first learn sincerity. Intelligence is the ability to perceive truth, and you cannot perceive the truth in higher ideas if you block out the truth about your own existence. This is impossible, folks. Look, what is lacking for the Safatles, the Janottis, probably Jose Arthur Janotti, a renowned Brazilian philosopher and professor, the Chaui, likely Marilena Chauí, Brazilian philosopher and writer known for her work on Spinoza and ideology, is exactly this. They haven't grasped the essential connection between intelligence and sincerity. If an individual doesn't tell the truth to themselves, they are destroying their intelligence. From this perspective, you need to see that the act of reading and acquiring knowledge to which you might dedicate yourself will be utterly useless if all you are supposedly learning is not incorporated, not into your memory, but into your person. Then every sentence you read must be incorporated to the point that it transforms into a new mechanism of perception that you have acquired. Each sentence. So, I will suggest an exercise to you that will take a long time, and we won't even be able to correct it here because it will likely take the entire duration of our course, but it is something that will mark you for the rest of your life. And it will change your life. You will take any philosophy book of your choice, preferably one that does you good. I suggest one by Louis Lavelle, French philosopher noted for his metaphysical philosophy, particularly on being and participation. Louis Lavelle is the only philosopher in the world, besides Aristotle, Greek philosopher and polymath, a towering figure in Western philosophy, whom I consider myself a disciple of. From others, I have learned many things but discipleship, especially in the sense that it is very difficult for me to disagree with anything Louis Lavelle says. Very difficult, even harder than disagreeing with Aristotle. The man tends to be right. No matter how much you twist and turn, analyze and reanalyze, it boils down to this. You will promise me that you will not read more than 2 or 3 sentences from it per day, but you will read each sentence and turn it into an object of meditation. What is meditation? Meditation means a deep confrontation with what is being said, a confrontation so profound that it should lead you to recognize in your own inner experience exactly what the author is talking about. To do this, you will need to draw on elements of memory, imagination, associations of ideas, and everything you have at your disposal. And you will not be satisfied until the sentence that arrived as an idea has transformed into perception. It's as if you read a dictionary definition of a cow and then went out looking for one. By the time you recognized the cows, a long time had passed. So your knowledge of cows is no longer merely verbal, but the real experience you had of them. This is what you must do, what you have to do with every sentence in the book. This book will take you years to read. But if it becomes interesting and you want to dive deeper and keep reading, don't do it. You will take, let's say, a few sentences, a paragraph with some unity. As you progress, you will carry out this experience with the first paragraph you choose. When you move on to the second, you will need to do it twice over. Not only must you achieve the same imaginative and existential absorption of what is said there, but you must also maintain the continuity of what came before. When you finish this exercise, you will evidently know the book by heart, not its words, but the exact sequence of ideas, because they will no longer be mere ideas. They will have become memories and perceptions. This means that every abstract concept in the book will need to be transformed into concrete, lived, and real examples. Let me give you an example of how this is done. I will take a book by Louis Lavelle, specifically one called La Présence Totale, the total presence. It is particularly useful for being a summary. Louis Lavelle's major work is a 4-volume series titled The Dialectic of Eternal Presence. Since it was very long, he created this summary titled La Présence Totale. Sometimes, La Présence Totale is less clear than the larger work. As Horace, Roman poet of the Augustan age, famous for his odes and satires, already said, brevity opposes clarity. To explain something in its minutest details, you need to include all those details, making the work longer. Thus, for this very reason, la présence totale is well suited for this type of exercise, as it is highly compacted. I will now read the first paragraph of the book, skipping the introduction. You will not skip the introduction at all, but I will skip it here for the purposes of this lecture. The first paragraph goes as follows. There is an initial experience implicit in all others, which gives each of them its weight and depth. It is the experience of the presence of being. Recognizing this presence is to recognize, in the same act, the participation of the self in being. Let me read it again. There is an initial experience implicit in all others, which gives each of them its weight and depth. It is the experience of the presence of being. Recognizing this presence is to recognize in the same act the participation of the self in being. What will you do with this paragraph? It says the following. First, there is an initial experience. Initial means it is prior to all others. Second, this experience gives the other possible experiences their weight and depth. In other words, this experience holds some importance because of its foundational nature. What is this experience? It is what they call the presence of being. What is being? It is everything that exists. How can you meditate on this? I suggest the following. Exercise. Close your eyes and try to imagine that there is nothing. Try to suppress all references to anything that exists. Try to suppress the presence of being. Do this 1,000 times to grasp what it is talking about. In other words, you have never had the experience of nothingness. But you need to try this. If you don't, it will remain mere talk. What I am suggesting is that you transform a series of generic and abstract affirmations into a concrete and personal experience. You will not debate with the author. You will not want to know if it is right or wrong. You will incorporate this as if it were an idea that occurred to you, as if it were not something you read in Louis Lavelle, but something you thought of yourself. Then, you will return to it, not to debate or analyze it logically, but to seek the experiential equivalent of what is stated there as an abstract concept. Now, let's proceed to the exercise. The experience will take two directions simultaneously. First, you will try to suppress being. Clearly, you will not succeed. But you must attempt it. You will see that even if you try to imaginatively eliminate everything, absolutely everything, some things will still remain. For example, your breathing will remain. You will not stop breathing while doing this exercise. It's not just Descartes. René Descartes, French philosopher famous for his phrase, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. Much more remains beyond thought. You cannot suppress your own presence. That is the second step of the exercise. Try to imagine that you do not exist. Make an effort. After doing this for some time, we move on to the next direction of the exercise. You have tried to suppress being. Now you will try to consciously perceive the presence of being. The presence of being is so obvious that you never think about it. You simply accept it, but you accept it, let's say, casually, and in such a way that sometimes your reasoning contradicts the presence of being. When your reasoning contradicts the presence of being, take, for example, when you doubt existence, you are breaking the connection between thought and experience. You are lying. You are learning to lie. Thoughts only hold value when they include within themselves the entirety of real, immediate experience, which you cannot deny. Do you understand? Of course, there are things that may disappear from your memory. But their disappearance from your memory does not mean they have disappeared from existence. You know they are still there. For example, when you forget where you left your car keys, you can only ask that question because you know the keys exist. They are not accessible to you. They are not objects of immediate experience, but they are part of the world of experience. So when you search for something you do not know where you left, you are acknowledging a temporary state of division you are traversing. A part of the real appears unreal, but you know it is real. Do you understand? To perform this second experience, I suggest an exercise I learned from the book Control of Mind and Emotions by Narciso Irala, Jesuit priest and psychologist, known for his work on emotional and mental control. He provides this exercise, among many others, for the benefit of mental health. But what we are aiming for here is not mental health. At least, not just that, but something more. I am using this exercise for a purpose different from that intended by Narciso Irala, though it will also bring you the benefits he mentions. The exercise involves lying down, relaxing, closing your eyes, and consciously perceiving all the noises around you, the nearby and distant noises. You will notice there is an infinity of sounds that you are not consciously perceiving, but neither can you say that you were not perceiving them at all. You were perceiving them in the background. In other words, they were not important for your immediate actions. They constituted the background of your immediate action. There is the close-up setting where you are acting and the surrounding environment, which extends outward in a series of concentric circles so that the sounds become increasingly imperceptible. But they are there. You will not think, analyze, or do anything else. You will simply collect the sounds. You will notice the hum of the air conditioner, a car horn far away, a dog barking, a bird chirping. Do you understand? Even the tiniest sounds. This exercise is purely passive perception. You will simply perceive what you were already perceiving in the background and bring it to the foreground. You are not to think about it, just perceive. Next, you will do a second exercise. Once again, close your eyes and imagine a black background. On this black background, from left to right, you will visualize a white line appearing, more or less like this. From the right end of the white line, you will draw a right angle, tracing another white line perpendicular to the first and of the same length. Then, from this point, you will trace a third perpendicular white line, also the same length, and from the end of that, you will draw another white line to close the square. The first exercise was about perception. The second is about mental construction. The sounds were present, the square was not. You created it. You invented it. You constructed it. Do you understand? The constructive activity of the mind is undoubtedly very important because there are many things beyond our immediate circle of experience that we could not conceive without this activity. However, when it begins to function prematurely, before you have developed your awareness of perception to the point where you can incorporate the presence of being as a constant and conscious fact, what happens? You replace the world of your ideas with the world of reality, just like Vladimir Safatli does. This is a sickness. The world of thought is undoubtedly interesting and can even be quite rich. But let's face it, there will never be as many things in it as there are in the real universe. Compared to the real universe, even the thought world of Aristotle, Greek philosopher and polymath, a towering figure in Western philosophy, is like a speck of chicken droppings. It's nothing. Before we can learn anything from Aristotle or anyone else, we must begin by learning from the real universe. And the real universe is a matter of perception. Pay close attention. When you perform this exercise, you will notice that the more distant noises, the outermost circles, will fade until you reach the inaudible. But notice that during the entire exercise, you always knew, for instance, that the sound of a horn comes from a car, the barking comes from a dog, the chirping comes from a bird, or the hum comes from an air conditioner. In other words, you didn't just perceive the noises, you perceived presences. Do you understand? You didn't need to think to know that the barking comes from a dog. Are you seeing this? That is, around you, you have a circle of presences to which you do not pay attention but of which you are, in a way, conscious. Why? Because they signal where you are, what you are doing now, and where you are doing it. Do you understand? This reference is permanently present. Nobody, absolutely nobody, acts in a void. This perception of presence also contains the perception of countless latent presences that you cannot grasp right now, but that you know are there. For example, if all these creatures were emitting noise, it's because they exist somewhere in space. And you know this. It's not a conclusion you reach. When you perceive that a sound is distant, the sound is distant. Well, distant is not a sound. It is a spatial reference. How could you distinguish between nearby and distant noises if the presence of space were not implicit? Do you understand? This is also another conscious element. So, after you have completed Narciso Irala's exercise on perceiving noises, later I will give you other exercises, such as the presence of the universe. But that will come later. For now, just focus on Narciso Irala's exercise. These exercises, let's say, draw the presence from the background into the foreground and incorporate it into your person. They enable you to experience reality with greater intensity. You won't just think about these presences abstractly, you will become intimately aware of their realness. Thank you for watching.